The possibility of alien life existing on other planets has always intrigued humans. Scientists and specialists have been working hard for a long time to find clues that indicate the habitat for life in outer space. Although they have not yet been able to find conclusive evidence, the fight continues as more and more space is mapped and explored through rovers and telescopes. A recent speech by a professor of planetary and space sciences at the Hope University of Liverpool reaffirmed the research of cosmic explorers and made them hope to find something substantial. In this video, we will tell you how this British scientist claims that the moon of Jupiter, Europe, is home to the life of another world. But before we go on, take 1 second to subscribe to this channel. This will help us grow and help you discover more about our planet. Jupiter has a long history of surprising scientists, dating from 1610 when Galileo Galilei discovered the first moons outside Earth. This discovery changed our perception of the universe. To begin with, Jupiter, the fifth planet in the Sun line, is by far the largest planet in the solar system, more than twice the mass of all other combined planets. 11 Earths could fit in the entire equatorial line of Jupiter. It would be the size of a basketball if the Earth were a grape. There is a lack of a surface similar to Earth because it is a gas giant. It probably only has the size of the Earth if it has a solid internal nucleus. In the second place, Jupiter orbits our Sun at a distance of 484 million miles or 5.2 astronomical units. Jupiter orbits the Sun in about 4,333 days of the Earth, or about 12 years of the Earth, known as the Jovian year. Jupiter's equator and the orbital planes of its moons are only 3 degrees inclined in relation to Jupiter's orbital path around the Sun, while the Earth is inclined by 23.5 degrees. This means that Jupiter rotates almost vertically, which means that the planet, as well as Europe and dozens of other moons of Jupiter, does not have as extreme stations as other planets. Each of the 4 giant planets in our solar system has a ring system. Jupiter's weak ring system was discovered in 1979 by the Voyager mission. Jupiter's family rings are actually cold and windless clouds of ammonia and water floating in an atmosphere of hydrogen and helium. Jupiter was visited by 9 spaceships. 2 orbited the gas giant and 7 flew by it. The most recent spaceship, Juno, arrived at Jupiter in 2016. The famous red spot of Jupiter is a gigantic storm bigger than the Earth, which has been in fury for hundreds of years. Hydrogen and helium make up most of Jupiter's atmosphere. There are more than 75 moons on Jupiter. As far as we know, Jupiter cannot withstand life. However, some of Jupiter's moons can shelter life in the ocean below its surface. The best chance to find current environments conducive to life beyond Earth is on the moon of our solar system, Europa. Europa has the name of a woman in Greek mythology, who was kidnapped by the god Zeus, also known as Jupiter in Roman mythology. The size of Europa, which has an equatorial diameter of 1,940 miles, is approximately 90% of the size of the Earth's moon. Europe would appear, therefore, approximately the same size in the sky as our moon, but much, much brighter if it were to replace it. Due to the ice of the water that covers its surface, Europe reflects 5.5 times more sunlight than the moon. At a distance of about 417,000 miles, Europe orbits Jupiter, which in turn is 500 million miles away, or 5.2 astronomical units of the Sunday. Takes 45 minutes for the solar light to reach Europe. According to scientists, a salty ocean with twice the water of all the oceans on Earth is almost undoubtedly present under the cold surface of Europe. In addition, scientists believe that Europe has an iron core, a rocky mantle, and the Earth. Sturdy evidence suggests that the ocean of Europe is in contact with the rock. This is significant because 3 essential ingredients are necessary for life as we know it. Liquid water, a source of energy, and organic compounds serve as building blocks for biological processes. All these 3 components can exist in Europe, and the ocean may have been present in the entire solar system. The time is enough for life to start and develop. As observed by terrestrial telescopes, most of the surface of Europe is water ice. The researchers discovered convincing evidence that a liquid or ice ocean, Lamacento, is under the crust of ice. The 2 Voyager spacecraft indicate for the first time that Europe could have liquid water in 1979 when they passed through the Jovian system. Then, the terrestrial telescopes, the Galileo spacecraft, and the space telescopes increased the scientists' confidence in the existence of an ocean in Europe. Europe has only a quarter of the Earth's diameter and is slightly smaller than Earth's moon. The same side of Europe always faces Jupiter because it rotates once on its axis and orbits Jupiter once every 3.5 days on Earth. Most of the time, solid water ice covers the surface of Europe. It has fractures that cross it. Long, linear fractures cross the surface of water and ice in Europe. The surface of this moon seems to be no more than 40 to 90 million years old, which is young in geological terms, based on the small number of visible craters. It is thought that Callisto, another of Jupiter's moons, is a few billion years old. A reddish-brown material is found throughout many fractures in Europe and in patterns of spots on its entire surface. Its composition is unknown, but it most likely contains sulfur salts and sulfur compounds that were infused with water ice and enhanced by radiation. This surface composition could reveal information about the potential of the moon as a habitable world. From 1995 to 2003, the Galileo spacecraft of NASA investigated the Jupiter system and made countless flights to Europe. Strange cavities and domes discovered by Galileo indicate that the ice layer of Europe may be slowly shaking and convecting due to the heat below. Many of the long linear fractures of Europe have only a few kilometers wide, but they can have thousands of kilometers in length. While some of these fractures seem to have moved away in wide ranges of numerous parallel fractures, others seem to have accumulated in crisscrosses hundreds of meters high. Galileo also discovered areas known as chaotic terrain, which presented broken and block-like landscapes covered by a reddish enigmatic substance. In 2011, researchers examining the data from Galileo proposed that the chaos fields could be places where the surface collapsed over lakes covered with ice, with a shape similar to a phreatic sheet. Although the oxygen atmosphere in Europe is very thin for humans to breathe, NASA reported in 2013 using the Hubble Space Telescope that scientists had discovered evidence suggesting that Europe may be actively ventilating water into space. This would indicate that the moon is still experiencing geological activity today. The incredibly deep expansive ocean of Europe is considered the best place to seek life outside Earth. The ocean of Europe may even be leaking into space, allowing a spaceship to pass through it without touching the surface of the moon. The water feathers could be studied by future spacecraft in a similar way as the Cassini. They showed the Saturn's moon feather in Enceladus if confirmed by subsequent observations. However, more recent observations of telescopes such as the Hubble Space Telescope and a reanalysis of some data from the Galileo spacecraft suggested that it is possible that thin water feathers are being ejected 100 miles above the surface of Europe. The spaceship Cassini performed this feat in Enceladus on the moon Saturn, which is known for a pulverized ocean in space. If the feathers exist and if its source is connected to the European Ocean, a spacecraft could travel through the feather to sample it and analyze it from orbit, essentially studying the moon's ocean. Even if Europe is not launching free samples into space, a 2018 study discovered that oceanic samples can still end up frozen in the moon's ice shell, where ice meets the ocean. Hotter and less dense ice would rise as the ice shell folds and flexes due to tides, lifting oceanic samples to the surface, where a spacecraft could analyze them remotely using, among other things, infrared and ultraviolet instruments. Scientists could then investigate the makeup of the material to see if the European Ocean could support life in any way. While the Galileo spacecraft was in the Jupiter system in the 90s, none of these feathers were observed at the time. An international research team led by NASA reported in November 2019 that had successfully observed water vapor directly for the first time above the surface of Europe. The team measured the vapor using a spectrograph at the Keck Observatory in Hawaii, which analyzes the infrared light that the samples of the planets emit or absorb to determine their chemical composition. There are no moons orbiting Europe. Although some moons in the solar system may already have had rings, Europe has none currently. Numerous spacecraft have visited Europe and more missions are scheduled. The public usually supports space programs because the hunt for the alien is a hopeful effort. Although it has not yet been discovered, the search for extraterrestrial life is a convincing reason for the launch into space. In a recent speech, Professor Monica Grady from the Department of Planetary and Spatial Sciences at the University of Liverpool Hope gave all cosmic explorers a colossal dose of this hope. Although there is no evidence to support it, it is confident that there is some kind of life on Jupiter's moon, Europe. Grady speculates that this life can be more complex than simple bacteria, possibly having intelligence similar to an octopus and probably existing in the cold waters under the layers of ice on the moon. Grady believes that there is a strong possibility of undiscovered life in our galaxy. She makes the hypothesis of some underground organisms, most likely bacteria, that may be hidden in the deepest caves and hollow regions of Mars. They may be getting ice water that is buried very deep. In a speech in February 2020, she observed, "When it comes to life perspectives beyond Earth, it is almost certain that there is life under ice in Europe." She believes that in these 390 million miles of Earth, life forms in Europe can be more advanced than the Martian bacteria, possibly having the intelligence of an octopus, where on this Jupiter moon the creatures would reside then, in a place below the thick layer of ice that reaches a depth of 15 miles in some places. It is plausible that there is water under all this ice, protecting any life that exists from the radiation and impact of asteroids and other objects that fall. The potential hydrothermal openings in the ocean bed of Europe increase the probability of life there. The Earth's respirators are the birthplaces of life. Grady believes that living conditions do not need to be exclusive to our solar system and that, statistically speaking, we should be able to find them while we investigate other stars and galaxies. The professor even declared, "I think it is highly likely that life exists elsewhere, and I think it is highly likely that it is also made of the same element." Grady was able to predict and we could make contact with aliens because of the likely enormous distances involved. Most of the sand grains are made of silicates, but there are also small carbon spots on them. She continued that carbon is extraterrestrial because it contains nitrogen and hydrogen, which are not terrestrial signatures. Grady observes that this small sample gives us an idea of how complex the register of extraterrestrial material is and that it shows that meteorites, asteroids, and interstellar dust hit it. Europe undoubtedly emerged in discussions about extraterrestrial life in the past. Scientists refer to Europe as an oceanic world because decades of observations indicate an ocean under its ice sheets, as declared by NASA. NASA made the first official water vapor confirmation back in 2019. In a report published in Nature Astronomy magazine on November 18, 2019, NASA planetary scientist Lucas Paganini and his team discovered that Europe was releasing enough water at a rate of 5,202 pounds per second to fill an Olympic-sized pool quickly. Paganini said, "For me, the interesting thing about this work is not only the first direct water detection above Europe but also its lack within the limits of our detection method." However, scientists have also discovered that water appears little frequently, at least in large quantities enough to detect from Earth. Does this moon have small extraterrestrial people swimming around it, considering that it may have the ideal conditions for life? Future research and time will certainly unfold the mysteries that the universe holds within itself. Thanks for watching.